Picture this. It's 1933. A brilliant Jewish engineer stands in his Berlin office, watching stormtroopers march past his window. Within months, he'll lose everything: his career, his homeland, his very identity as a German. But here's what the Nazis didn't know. They just expelled the one man who would help build the machines that would destroy them. This isn't a story about revenge. It's something far more powerful. It's about how hatred defeats itself, how genius finds a way, and how one refugee's determination helped turn the tide of the greatest war in human history. The man's name was Ernst Chain. Wait, no. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you about someone even more crucial to victory, a name you've probably never heard, but should never forget. Before we dive into this incredible true story, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. This channel brings you the untold stories of World War II, the brilliant minds, the fatal mistakes, and the moments that changed everything. We're building a community of history lovers who want to go deeper than the textbooks. Join us. Now let's meet the man who built victory. Chapter 1. The Fall Berlin, 1932. Dr. Rudolf Peierls sits in the cafe where Einstein once held court, discussing quantum mechanics with colleagues who will soon pretend they never knew him. He's 25 years old, brilliant, with a promising career in theoretical physics stretching before him like an open road. Germany is his home. German is his language. He served his country, contributed to its scientific prestige, and considered himself as German as anyone else. But there's a problem. Well, the Nazis call it a problem. Rudolf Peierls is Jewish. When Hitler seizes power in January 1933, Peierls watches his world collapse with terrifying speed. The law for the restoration of the professional civil service passes in April, and suddenly, Jewish academics are being dismissed en masse. Colleagues he's known for years won't meet his eyes. Students who once sought his guidance now wear swastika armbands. The university that nurtured his talent now considers him a parasite. Peierls isn't naive. He's heard the speeches, seen the violence in the streets, read the writing on the wall, literally, as anti-Semitic graffiti spreads across Berlin like a disease. But understanding intellectually that you must leave and actually abandoning your homeland are two different things entirely. This is the land of Beethoven, of Goethe, of his ancestors going back generations. How do you just walk away from that? Yet he has no choice. By late 1933, Peierls and his Russian-born wife, Genia, are packing their lives into suitcases, holding their infant daughter, preparing to become refugees. They're not alone. Albert Einstein has already fled. Max Born is leaving. James Franck has resigned in protest. Germany is hemorrhaging its intellectual capital, expelling the very minds that made it a scientific powerhouse. The irony is spectacular. Though Peierls can't appreciate it yet, the Nazi obsession with racial purity is about to hand the Allies their greatest weapon. Not a gun or a bomb, not yet, but something more valuable: brain power, motivation, and a burning determination to prove that hatred is not strength. Peierls secures a position at the University of Manchester in England. It's a demotion from his status in Germany, a step backward in prestige. But it's safety. It's a future. It's a chance to continue his work in theoretical physics, even as his former homeland descends into darkness. He arrives in England speaking halting English, carrying letters of recommendation from colleagues who risk their own careers to vouch for him. The British academic community, to their credit, opens their doors to the German refugees. Not always warmly. There's suspicion, bureaucracy, the casual anti-Semitism that exists everywhere, but they open them nonetheless. Pyrrhus throws himself into work. What else is there? He can't go home. His family is scattered across Europe trying to survive. Every letter from Germany brings worse news, more restrictions, more violence, more friends disappearing. He buries his grief in equations, in teaching, in building a new life from the ashes of the old one. And he waits. Because even in 1933, even as he's unpacking boxes in Manchester, Pyrrhus knows something that few others have grasped yet. This isn't over. Hitler won't stop with persecuting Jews. The man who burned books will burn Europe. War is coming, as inevitable as sunrise. When it arrives, Rudolf Pyrrhus will be ready, and he'll bring a gift to his adopted homeland that will change warfare forever. Chapter 2. The Calculation. March 1940. Rudolf Pyrrhus sits at his desk in Birmingham, staring at a problem that has vexed physicists for years: the critical mass. How much uranium-235 would you actually need to create a nuclear chain reaction? The kind that doesn't just generate energy, but explodes with the force of thousands of tons of conventional explosives? Most scientists have done the math and reached a comforting conclusion. You'd need tons of the stuff. Separating that much uranium-235 from uranium-238 would be virtually impossible. An atomic bomb, while theoretically feasible, is practically absurd. The war will be won or lost with tanks and planes, not with some physicist's fever dream. Pyrrhus isn't so sure. He's been working with another refugee, Otto Frisch, nephew of Lisa Meitner, the woman who first understood nuclear fission and was also driven out by the Nazis. Together, they've been revisiting the calculations, and they're finding something terrifying. The previous estimates assumed slow neutrons. But what if you used fast neutrons? What if you accounted for the cross-section more accurately? What if you considered that in a smaller mass, fewer neutrons would escape before triggering fission? Pyrrhus' pencil scratches across paper, filling page after page with equations. Numbers emerge that make his blood run cold. Not tons, not even hundreds of pounds. You'd need about 1 pound, maybe less, of uranium-235 to create a bomb that could destroy an entire city. 1 pound. Suddenly, the impossible becomes merely very difficult. He looks at Frisch. Frisch looks back. They both understand what this means. Separating a pound of uranium-235 is challenging, yes, but it's achievable. With enough resources, enough time, enough determination, it can be done. And if they've figured this out, sitting in Birmingham with limited resources, what might the Germans achieve? The Germans, with their technical expertise, their industrial capacity, their head start? The Germans, who still have access to the physicists who stayed behind, who control the uranium mines in Czechoslovakia, who are led by a regime that has already demonstrated it will do anything, absolutely anything, to win. Pyrrhus and Frisch write it all down in a memorandum. 3 pages that will change history. They outline not just the physics of the bomb, but how to build it, how to separate the isotopes, how to trigger the explosion, even how to deliver it, attached to a missile perhaps, or dropped from an aircraft. They hand their memorandum to Marcus Oliphant, the Australian physicist heading up British nuclear research. Oliphant reads it and understands immediately that everything has changed. He forwards it up the chain of command, where it lands on the desks of men who must now grapple with an awful question. Should we build this weapon? The Frisch-Pyrrhus memorandum arrives at a desperate moment. France is about to fall. Britain stands alone against the Nazi war machine. Invasion seems imminent. The RAF is outnumbered. Cities are being bombed nightly. Britain needs something, anything, that might level the playing field. Yet even in desperation, there's hesitation. The memorandum doesn't just explain how to build a superweapon. It also warns about the consequences. An atomic bomb wouldn't discriminate between soldiers and civilians. It would poison the land with radiation. It would kill indiscriminately, horribly. Is this the kind of weapon a civilized nation should pursue? But then again, are they fighting a civilized enemy? The Nazis have already shown what they're capable of in Poland, in their own concentration camps. If Germany gets the bomb first, they won't hesitate. They won't agonize over morality. They'll use it, and Britain will cease to exist. The decision is made. Investigate further. Secretly. Urgently. The Maud Committee forms to study the feasibility of an atomic bomb. Peierls and Frisch are at the center of it. The refugees who are now helping to arm their adopted homeland. The supreme irony isn't lost on anyone. Hitler's racial policies have given Britain access to some of the world's finest nuclear physicists. Men who might have built a Nazi bomb are instead working frantically to build one for the Allies. The Führer's hatred has become a weapon pointed directly at his own head. Chapter 3. The Refugee Brigade. Rudolf Peierls isn't working alone. Look at the roster of scientists racing to build the atomic bomb, and you'll see a who's who of Hitler's biggest mistakes. A brilliant collective of minds he expelled, exactly the people he needed most. There's Otto Frisch, Peierls' collaborator on the critical mass calculation. Born in Vienna, forced out by the Anschluss, now working in Birmingham to destroy the regime that destroyed his career. His aunt, Lisa Meitner, was the first to understand nuclear fission, but as a Jewish woman in Nazi Germany, she had to flee to Sweden. Her discovery became the foundation for the bomb, but she refused to work on weapons, haunted by what her physics might unleash. There's Klaus Fuchs, a German communist who fled the Nazis in 1933. He'll become one of the key theoreticians on the Manhattan Project, calculating the implosion dynamics that make the plutonium bomb work. Brilliant, essential. And though the British don't know it yet, he's also a Soviet spy, passing atomic secrets to Stalin. The refugee crisis is complicated. There's James Chadwick, discoverer of the neutron, the fundamental particle that makes atomic bombs possible. While not Jewish, he's appalled by Nazi Germany and throws himself into the British bomb project with grim determination. He understands the physics better than almost anyone alive. There's Franz Simon, expelled from his professorship in Breslau. Now at Oxford working on isotope separation, the grueling process of extracting uranium-235 from natural uranium. Without his expertise, the bomb would remain theoretical, impossible to actually build. There's Hans Bethe, who fled to America and will head the theoretical division at Los Alamos. There's Edward Teller, another Hungarian refugee, obsessed with an even more powerful weapon, the hydrogen bomb. There's Eugene Wigner, Leo Szilard, Victor Weisskopf. The list goes on and on. They're joined by brilliant minds who aren't refugees, but are equally committed to stopping fascism. J. Robert Oppenheimer, American son of German immigrants, will lead the entire Manhattan Project. Enrico Fermi, Italian, fled Mussolini's racial laws with his Jewish wife. Niels Bohr, Danish, will be smuggled out of Nazi-occupied Denmark in a dramatic escape. Together they form an unprecedented concentration of scientific genius, all focused on a single goal: build the bomb before Hitler does. They work in shifts, around the clock, driven by nightmares of what happens if they're too late. Every one of them has friends or family still trapped in Europe. They've all seen the newsreels, heard the rumors of what's happening in the camps. This isn't abstract for them. It's personal. Perls becomes the soul of this effort in Britain. He's not the loudest voice or the most famous name, but he's the one who did the calculation that made it all possible. He's the one who proved it could be done, and now he's helping to actually do it. The work is theoretical at first, endless equations, checking and rechecking the physics. But as 1940 turns to 1941 and 1941 to 1942, the project grows more concrete. The British realize they don't have the industrial capacity to build a bomb while also fighting for survival against Germany. They need American help. Enter the Manhattan Project. In 1942, the Americans take the lead, pouring unprecedented resources into building atomic weapons. The British contingent, including Perls, joins them. Perls moves his family to America, once again an immigrant, once again starting over, once again in service of defeating the regime that made him a refugee. He ends up at Los Alamos, the secret city in the New Mexico desert where the bomb is being built. It's a strange place, this collection of the world's smartest people living behind barbed wire, working on humanity's most destructive weapon. The refugees swap stories about their escapes, about the homes they lost, about the relatives who didn't make it out, and they work. God, how they work. Because every day they delay is another day Hitler remains in power, another day the concentration camps operate, another day, their people die. The bomb isn't just a weapon to them, it's a responsibility, a duty, perhaps even a form of justice. History will later debate the morality of the atomic bomb, and those debates are important. But in 1943 and 1944, at Los Alamos, the calculation is simpler, us or them. Freedom or fascism. The refugees who built the bomb believed they were saving the world, and perhaps they were right. Chapter 4. The Race Against the Shadow. While Perls and his colleagues work frantically at Los Alamos, they're haunted by a terrifying question. What are the Germans doing? The fear of a Nazi atomic bomb isn't paranoia. It's based on hard facts. Germany has every advantage. They have Werner Heisenberg, one of the founders of quantum mechanics, a physicist as brilliant as anyone at Los Alamos. They have the industrial capacity of occupied Europe. They have the uranium mines of Czechoslovakia. They have a 3-year head start beginning their atomic research in 1939. The Allied scientists know this. They know Heisenberg. Many studied with him, collaborated with him, considered him a friend before the war. They know exactly how capable he is. If Heisenberg puts his mind to building a bomb with the full support of the Nazi state, he'll succeed. And if Germany gets the bomb first, the war is over. Hitler will incinerate London, then Moscow, then any other city that defies him. Intelligence reports filtering back to Allied command are fragmentary, but alarming. The Germans have taken over the Norsk hydro plant in Norway, the world's only large-scale producer of heavy water, a crucial component for certain types of nuclear reactors. They're stockpiling uranium. They've established a research program under Army ordnance. Heisenberg is involved, along with other top German physicists. The Allies respond with sabotage operations that read like spy thrillers. In 1943, Norwegian commandos execute a daring raid on the Norsk hydro plant, blowing up the heavy water production facility. Later, when the Germans try to ship their remaining heavy water stocks to Germany, the Norwegian resistance sinks the ferry carrying it. These operations slow the German program. But do they stop it? No one knows. The uncertainty is maddening. At Los Alamos, scientists work under the assumption that they're in a race, that somewhere in Germany, Heisenberg's team is solving the same problems, assembling the same components, preparing their own atomic weapon. Every delay, every setback in the American program could be fatal. Peierls understands the stakes better than most. He knows the German physics community intimately. He studied there, worked there, knows what they're capable of. When someone suggests the Germans might not be able to build a bomb, that their program might have stalled, Peierls shakes his head. Never underestimate German engineering. Never assume they've failed. Work as if they're 6 months ahead. Because they might be. But here's what the Allied scientists don't know, what they won't learn until after Germany surrenders. The Nazi bomb program is a mess. Not because the Germans lack talent or resources, but because of the very ideology that started the war. When Hitler expelled Jewish physicists, he didn't just lose Peierls and Frisch and the others who fled to the Allies. He lost the entire Jewish physics community in Germany. Teachers, researchers, students, lab technicians. He created a brain drain that gutted German science. Then he made it worse by declaring theoretical physics Jewish physics and favoring Aryan physics that rejected Einstein's relativity and other modern concepts. The result? The Nazi bomb program is hobbled from the start. Heisenberg and his colleagues are brilliant, but they're working with reduced resources, infighting with the Nazi Party, and lacking key insights that the international physics community, now concentrated at Los Alamos, shares freely. Heisenberg makes crucial miscalculations about critical mass. The program never gets the funding it needs. German industrial capacity is stretched thin, fighting a multi-front war. By 1944, the German atomic program has essentially stalled. They've built experimental reactors, but they're nowhere close to a bomb. Heisenberg knows it. He's perhaps relieved. Post-war, he'll claim he deliberately slowed the program, though historians debate whether that's true or self-serving revision. But Peierls doesn't know this in 1944. None of the Allied scientists do. They work in fear, racing against an enemy who's actually far behind. In a strange way, the fear is useful. It drives them forward, eliminates complacency, ensures they don't waste a single day. The truth is, Hitler lost the atomic race the moment he decided that genius has a race, that physics can be Aryan or Jewish. That ideology matters more than ability. He lost it when he made Peierls pack his bags in Berlin. Every equation Peierls solves at Los Alamos is a consequence of that expulsion, a chain reaction that started with hatred and ends with defeat. Chapter 5. Trinity and Transformation, July 16, 1945. Pre-dawn darkness blankets the New Mexico desert. Rudolf Peierls stands with dozens of other scientists at a viewing station 20 miles from Ground Zero, waiting for humanity to change forever. He's wearing welding goggles as protection against a light brighter than anything Earth has ever seen. His heart pounds. 3 years of brutal work have led to this moment. The countdown reaches 0. For a fraction of a second, nothing. Then, the world turns white. Not just bright. White, a colorless intensity that defies description. Even through the welding goggles, even at 20 miles distance, Peierls has to look away. The light is primordial, the light of creation, the light of stars. In that flash, hydrogen fuses into helium just like in the sun. Peierls has helped bring stellar fire to Earth. The light fades to a massive fireball rising into the sky, turning into the now iconic mushroom cloud. The heat reaches them 20 miles away, a sudden warmth on their faces in the cool desert air. Then, 90 seconds after the flash, the sound arrives. A tremendous boom followed by a long, rolling rumble like thunder that won't end. The Trinity test works perfectly. The bomb releases energy equivalent to 22,000 tons of TNT from a device smaller than a person. Pearls watches the mushroom cloud rise to 40,000 feet and understands with absolute clarity, the world will never be the same. War will never be the same. International relations will never be the same. Humanity now possesses the power to annihilate itself. Around him, reactions vary. Some scientists cheer, it worked. 3 years of impossible effort succeeded. Some stand in stunned silence. Oppenheimer will later recall thinking of the Bhagavad Gita. Now I am become death, destroyer of worlds. Kenneth Bainbridge, the test director, tells Oppenheimer, now we are all sons of bitches. What does Peierls think? He's never fully said. But we can imagine. Relief. It works. Germany doesn't have one. The balance of power is secure. Horror at what they've created. What it means for humanity's future. Satisfaction. The refugee who lost everything has helped save the world. And perhaps a grim sense of justice. Hitler wanted to expel Jewish physics, and Jewish physics has just helped defeat him. But wait. Germany surrendered in May, 2 months before Trinity. The war in Europe is over. Hitler is dead. Berlin is rubble. The Third Reich is kaput. The bomb that Peierls and others built to stop Hitler will never be used against Germany. This troubles many of the scientists. Leo Szilard petitions against using the bomb on Japan. Others raise moral objections. They signed up to stop fascism, not to incinerate Japanese cities. Japan is already on the brink of surrender, they argue. A demonstration of the bomb's power should be enough. Peierls is less vocal in these debates, perhaps because he's British, not American, and the decision isn't his to make. Or perhaps because he understands what many prefer not to. The bomb was never just about Germany. It's about ending the war, establishing post-war power dynamics, demonstrating to Stalin that America has this capability. Trinity is a scientific success and a geopolitical statement. 3 weeks later, on August 6th, Little Boy falls on Hiroshima. 3 days after that, Fat Man, a plutonium implosion design that Peierls helped develop, destroys Nagasaki. Between them, the bombs kill over 200,000 people, most of them civilians. Japan surrenders on August 15th. The war is over. The atomic bomb didn't defeat Hitler. Conventional forces did that. But it's impossible to separate the Manhattan Project from the Allied victory. The industrial and scientific mobilization that built the bomb also built the planes, tanks, and weapons that won in Europe. The refugee scientists contributed far beyond the bomb itself. They revolutionized radar, proximity fuses, operations research, cryptography. And there's a deeper victory, one that goes beyond military hardware. Hitler's ideology insisted that race determines ability, that Jewish physics was inferior to Aryan physics, that purity mattered more than competence. The atomic bomb is the ultimate refutation of that ideology. It was built by refugees and immigrants, by Jews and Gentiles working together, by the international scientific community that the Nazis rejected. The bomb proves that openness beats closure, that diversity beats purity, that hatred defeats itself. Chapter 6. The Legacy. Rudolf Peierls survives the war and returns to Britain, to the University of Birmingham, where he did the crucial calculation. He's knighted in 1968, Sir Rudolf Peierls, the refugee who became one of Britain's most distinguished physicists. He lives until 1995, long enough to see the Cold War end, long enough to witness the world grapple with the weapons he helped create. Does he regret building the bomb? He never quite says. In interviews and memoirs, Peierls is measured, thoughtful, aware of the complexity. Yes, the bomb killed hundreds of thousands. Yes, humanity now possesses the means of its own extinction. Yes, the nuclear age has brought fear and danger and the constant threat of annihilation. But also, the bomb ended the war. It prevented an invasion of Japan that would have killed millions. It established a deterrent that, so far, has prevented World War III. Would the world be better off if the bomb had never been invented? Perhaps. But would it be better off if the Nazis had invented it first? Absolutely not. Peierls sees his work in context. He was a refugee, expelled from his homeland by a regime that threatened civilization itself. He and his colleagues used their knowledge to defend democracy, to stop fascism, to protect the world from tyranny. They succeeded. Hitler is dead. The Third Reich is ashes. The concentration camps are liberated. The bomb was part of that victory. And there's the deeper legacy, the one that matters more than any weapon. The refugee scientists proved that diversity is strength. They demonstrated that when you expel talent, you're not purifying your nation. You're weakening it. They showed that openness to immigrants, to different perspectives, to international collaboration, produces better results than nationalism and xenophobia. Look at the post-war scientific landscape. Many of the Manhattan Project scientists become leaders in physics, chemistry, biology, computer science. They found institutions, win Nobel Prizes, train the next generation. Peierls himself becomes one of the most influential theoretical physicists of his era, making contributions to quantum field theory, nuclear physics, and statistical mechanics that have nothing to do with bombs. The United States, which welcomed these refugees, becomes the world's scientific superpower, not in spite of immigration, but because of it. Meanwhile, Germany, which expelled its Jewish scientists, takes decades to recover its scientific standing. The lesson is clear. Nations that welcome talent prosper, nations that reject it suffer. But the atomic age also brings challenges that Peierls witnesses with growing concern. The arms race between America and the Soviet Union produces tens of thousands of nuclear weapons, each far more powerful than the bombs dropped on Japan. The world lives under the shadow of potential annihilation, a situation that still persists today. The technology that Peierls helped unleash can't be unleashed. In his later years, Peierls becomes an advocate for arms control and nuclear disarmament. He works with the Pugwash conferences on science and world affairs, bringing together scientists from East and West to discuss reducing nuclear dangers. The man who helped build the bomb now works to constrain it, to prevent the very catastrophe his work made possible. It's a complicated legacy, like all legacies of war. Peierls helped defeat fascism, but with a weapon that still threatens humanity. He demonstrated the power of refugee genius, but also the dangers of unleashed science. He saved millions of lives by helping to end the war, but the bombs he helped build killed hundreds of thousands. How do we judge him? Maybe we don't. Maybe we simply remember him. A brilliant mind, a refugee who turned exile into contribution, a man who fled hatred and fought back with knowledge. He represents something essential about the 20th century, the triumph of science, the horror of war, the complicated moral landscape where good people make weapons of mass destruction for what they believe are good reasons. The story of Rudolf Peierls and his fellow refugee scientists is ultimately a story about consequences. The Nazis thought they were purifying Germany by expelling Jewish scientists. Instead, they armed their enemies. They thought racial ideology would make them stronger. Instead, it guaranteed their defeat. They thought hatred was a source of power. They were wrong. Every equation Peierls solved, every calculation he completed, every contribution he made to the Manhattan Project, all of it traces back to a single decision by the Nazis to make him an exile. They created their own defeat, one expelled physicist at a time. That's the real lesson here. Hatred doesn't make you strong. It makes you vulnerable. It hands your enemies exactly what they need to beat you. Sir Rudolf Peierls died in 1995 at age 88 in his adopted homeland of Britain. The Jewish refugee expelled from Berlin had become one of the most honored scientists of his generation. And somewhere in the equations he left behind, in the bomb he helped build and the world he helped save, there's a simple truth. Genius has no race, knowledge has no nationality, and hatred always, eventually, defeats itself. Epilogue. The equation that changed everything. 20 years after Trinity, Rudolf Peierls sits in his Birmingham office, the same university where he calculated the critical mass that made everything possible. A student asks him the question everyone wants to know. Professor, if you could go back to 1940, knowing what you know now about Hiroshima, about the arms race, about everything, would you still write that memorandum? Peierls is silent for a long moment. Then he says something remarkable. The memorandum didn't create the bomb. It revealed that the bomb was possible. That knowledge, once discovered, couldn't be undiscovered. If we hadn't written it, someone else would have calculated it eventually. Perhaps the Germans, perhaps the Soviets. The question was never whether humanity would discover atomic weapons. It was who would discover them first. This is the paradox at the heart of the story. Peierls and Frisch didn't invent nuclear fission. Nature did that billions of years ago in the hearts of stars. They simply did the math correctly. They recognized what was already true about the universe, that matter and energy are interchangeable, that atoms can be split, that a chain reaction can release unimaginable power. The physics was always there, waiting to be understood. What makes their story remarkable isn't the science, it's the human element. A regime built on hatred expelled the very people who could have given them ultimate power. The Nazis believed in racial hierarchy, in the superiority of Aryan physics over Jewish physics. That ideology was their downfall. Every refugee scientist who fled to Britain or America was a gift to the Allies, a self-inflicted wound by Germany. Imagine an alternate history where Germany welcomed all talent regardless of religion or ethnicity, where Peierls stayed in Berlin, where Einstein never left, where the full might of German physics remained intact. In that world, Germany likely builds the bomb first, probably by 1943. Hitler with atomic weapons doesn't negotiate, he dictates. The war ends differently. Democracy loses. Instead, hatred saved democracy. The Nazis' blind spot, their inability to see that genius comes from minds, not bloodlines, became their fatal flaw. They handed victory to their enemies, one expelled physicist at a time. Today, nuclear weapons remain humanity's most dangerous creation. 9 countries possess them. The threat of nuclear war, while less immediate than during the Cold War, hasn't vanished. It's simply evolved. The technology Peierls helped unlock will be with us forever. We can't uninvent it. We can only hope to manage it wisely. But there's another legacy, quieter, but perhaps more important. The refugee scientists who built the bomb proved something essential about human society. Openness wins. Nations that welcome talent, that embrace diversity, that judge people by their abilities rather than their origins, those nations prosper. Nations that close themselves off, that obsess over purity, that let ideology override competence, those nations fail. This lesson remains urgent today. Around the world, we still see the same impulses that drove the Nazis: the fear of the other, the belief that ethnic or religious homogeneity equals strength, the desire to expel or exclude people who are different. And every time, it's the same mistake. You don't make your nation stronger by driving away talent. You hand that talent to your competitors. Rudolf Peierls, the Jewish refugee expelled from Berlin, helped defeat Hitler with physics and mathematics. But his real victory was simpler. He proved that hatred is weakness disguised as strength, that diversity is strength disguised as weakness, and that in the end, knowledge transcends all the artificial boundaries we draw between human beings. The bomb he helped build may last forever, but the lesson of how it was built and who built it matters just as much.